Hello, my name is Alyssa Lokits, and I am here with Alex Sidorenko. Alex, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Alyssa.
Well, I've heard a few different stories about you saving money through risk quantification. One came through David Vos. I think the two of you were at a conference, a FIRMA conference, I think, on the back of the napkin doing some calculations on how to play the lottery. Can you tell me that story?
We had so yeah, thank you for reminding me because we just played another lottery yesterday, and this time the math showed that it was going to be a losing one, and in fact it was a losing one. So unfortunately we didn't make money, but we did used to make money before that because every game they're rare, and every game is different depending on what the marketing department of the lottery organization decides. And so yeah, I had a philosophy in my life is that if I was going to become a good risk manager in the corporate world, it would kind of make sense to apply the same skills in my day-to-day life. And that's what I've been trying to do throughout my whole kind of
in your professional and personal experience. Perfect.
yeah. And that's what I've been trying to do in my investment portfolios, in my relocations, living, housing. Basically, just to give you an indication, I've built a Monte Carlo budget for my wedding, and yeah, my wife loved it.
I'm going to ask about that as well. Okay. How did
Yeah,
she
yeah,
feel?
yeah. So that was hilarious. Yeah, my wife loved it. No, like I'm sarcastic. She did not love it. So yeah, I'm that kind of person who built a financial model for your wedding. I forecasted, how many gifts I would get. I forecasted the expenses and the reserves, and yeah, it was fun. And so continuing
Accurate,
down.
though.
Hmm?
Did you get the number of gifts that you anticipated?
No, it was much more. It was a surprise, pleasant surprise. But so can you kind of continuing the theme? I was doing a project at one of the diamond mines deep in Siberia, and we were talking with another risk manager, and she said there's this fun story on how a couple of MIT students and another old retired mathematician were making money from lottery. And because obviously lotteries are random and the chances are against you in any normal game,
Right.
except few marketing games per year where the probability of winning or losing is exactly the same, but your winnings are bigger because it's a special marketing thing that they do. It's called rollover, where too much money is sitting in the pot, and it's bad for lottery reputation if nobody wins for a long time. It kind of starts reducing the number of tickets sold, so they just give it out to the winners of one special game. And those games are very rare. They're like once every 6 months, sometimes once every year, because and only a few countries have them. For example, Australia has one, Russia has one, and that's pretty much like it of what I.
There's not one in the U.S.
Not that I'm aware. They have been because those stories originated in US. They had to close it down because people were complaining that smart people were just basically winning against everybody else, because you don't really take the money from the government, you just take the money from other players who are not as smart as you are. And so yeah, it was considered an ethical issue, and the lotteries, couple of state lotteries used to have it in US, and they just kind of canceled the games. And so in some countries, there's still opportunities like that, but they're very rare. And so we gathered, because I know all of the quantitative risk managers in Europe, or most of them. We had like a WhatsApp chat, who wants to make money on the lottery? And so we had, I don't know, maybe 15 or 16 risk managers. Not all of them who were quants, but some of them were quants, and some of them were like amazing quants, like rocket scientists type quants. But in reality, the model that, so we've built a model, and there was such a game. It was announced, and usually it's announced like 3 or 4 days in advance. And so we basically had only like 3 days to build a model. And so we've built this model, and we built a pretty complicated model. That was the model that I was discussing with David, and he was validating it, and he was giving his kind of ideas on the model. Later, we discovered that we could actually build a much simpler model, and there was only one factor that really influences whether we make money or not. And right now, yesterday, our model was like this big. You discover things like to actually make a decision to play or not to play. You don't actually need a full model of the whole lottery game. It's enough to just calculate the kind of the expected return, and that's a simple equation. But you learn. And so we had this group of risk managers who build a model for a lottery game, calculated, and our expected return. We pulled together all in 3 days. We pulled together a lot of money. Thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. Like not that much money, not millions. Because in US they were playing millions. Like they would invest like 3-5 million per game, because you can almost double it. If you there's a 90% probability that you would almost double it, and a 10% probability that you would lose up to 60% of it. For our game in US, the odds were a little bit different, but similar in principle. And so, yes, we had this WhatsApp chat with risk managers, making bets on lottery for that special game. And we've made those bets, I think 3 or 4 times since. This was many years ago, 3 or 4 times since, because most of the recent games we've calculated to be unprofitable. And if we were to play, for example, yesterday, if we were to play, we expected to lose up to 8% of our investment. So that's a pretty silly investment. You invest 100 and you get 92 back. However, in the first games, our return after taxes and all commissions paid to the banks and everything, we made like a 60% return.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's for 3 days and nights of modeling and buying tickets. So that was pretty good. And then the second game we had that I can't remember. I wrote a couple of articles about that, trying to share that story with the world. And we had like 20 or 30% return, which is not as fun, but it's still decent money. I mean, if you put it on the deposit in the bank, you would get what, like 0.5%. We got 20 or 30 in the second game. And it always comes with a risk. There's always a 10 to 20% probability that you lose half of or 60% of your investment. But to our risk appetite, that was a good deal. 9-1 odds of making money, and there was expected kind of return, 20 to 60%. And then there's, of course, this very small probability that we would actually make a lot of money. We never made a lot of money, but we always got the forecasted returns. We had like a confidence interval of how much money we expected to make, and we would always. So our models were pretty solid, as life showed.
That is impressive. So from the lottery to your wedding, were there other models that you've created in your personal life, kind of taking practices from professional experience? Any other fun stories that you've successfully won?
I do. And this is kind of a weird coincidence, because it was a complete coincidence that I met with David at the Ferma conference in Berlin, I think it was. And we were there talking about the lottery and improving that, because the other Archer employee, Graham Keith, actually helped me design and did most of the math for my other life model, because I at some stage I had a question. Should I buy or should I rent? That's a pretty typical question. And the second part of that question was, should I sell the current apartment kind of when buying a house, or should I rent out the current apartment when buying a house? So Graham and Graham did most of the work. I mean, I was just kind of thinking through it. Graham and I actually built this life model, as in a model of my life for I can't remember, 80 or 60 years. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, that had all sorts of risks. Me losing a job, sickness, death, house, burglaries, fires, floods. Yeah, it was like, that was fun. And I started doing a series of articles highlighting. Sorry, do you want to repeat that? Because when I talk and you talk, the sound doesn't come through.
Okay. Oh, I'm gonna have to call Graham next and have him model my life. That'll be my next call.
Yeah, it was expensive. It was expensive, but yes, it was such a fun model. At the end, it was a very structured, very fun model, and the conclusion was amazing as well. The conclusion was, it doesn't matter. And that's the beauty of risk management. Sometimes you get excited when you do quantitative risk analysis and it gives you a definitive answer, like this is the right thing. But in my mind, it's actually much more peaceful when the model tells you've considered all the scenarios and it actually doesn't matter. So you can switch from kind of purely economical thinking to emotional thinking. For example, I dream of having I don't know, what's the place called when you have bees, where you just make honey? The
Like
little beehive boxes, like there are wooden boxes.
Beehive.
Yeah, so like I want those, and I want an apple garden where I can grow apples and make cider. So once I confirmed that our family would not be worse off if we decided to purchase a house, then it kind of became more emotional, soft decision, because both decisions are right. And then you'll have the freedom of selecting, which one do you feel like doing most? And you go like, okay, this one just feels more me. And that was good. Because most of the time it's not like that. Most of the time it's actually, we make emotional decisions and we're making the worst choices possible, because we haven't done the homework. We haven't done the kind of the risk quantification. But once you've done the risk quantification and the model tells you it's the same, you go, oh, wonderful. Now I have the pleasure of choosing my destiny.
That is lovely. That is lovely. I think we're all going to call Graham Keith now and have him figure out what we should be doing with our lives. That's wonderful. Well, in the last little bit of time I have, any final questions for risk quantification in personal life that maybe some non-risk quantification experts could apply?
Do you mean any instances or any decisions where there could be value from risk quantification? Yeah, I think the biggest opportunity, and I think the most important one, is investment, just personal investment, because having the American dream of having a house and a car, and having multiple cars, for example, is most of the time a bad investment. And having just one house is also may not necessarily be optimal investment. So I think that's the space personal portfolio, that's the space where I think there's a lot of value for risk management and risk quantification in our day-to-day lives. Moving to a new country, that's always an important basic. I mean, in reality, any big decision, any scary decision, which university to send kids to or where to move, accept or not accept a new job which requires relocation. All of those decisions can benefit from risk analysis. And I mean, I've been living risk management for so long that my wife now has to as well. So even selecting like the location for the 8-year-old daughter's birthday is now done using like a decision tree. It's not a stochastic decision tree, but it still is a decision tree.
That is phenomenal. That is phenomenal. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Thank you for our listeners for sticking with us, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Alyssa. Thanks, everyone.